welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the gut microbiome and its connection with leaky gut. And if you've missed the talks about leaky gut, you can go back to those webinars or videos and really diving deep into leaky gut, what it is, what the symptoms are, what the causes are, and the connection between the ADD, ADHD, and leaky gut. So definitely check those. But today we want to talk about the gut microbiome and that connection. So briefly, with the leaky gut, we are talking about the gut wall not working properly. And when it doesn't work properly, havoc breaks out in the gut. And in the last video, we were talking about food sensitivities, and how they can create a leaky gut. So today we want to talk about the gut microbiome. The gut microbiome I think of as the terrain of your gut. I compare it a lot to a garden, the soil in the garden. And when I had to grow a garden, it really came out bad when I did it. But when I had my landscaper come in and he told me, I was like, I'm going to work the soil. And he was going on about like nitrogen and this and aerating it and all the stuff that the soil needed to be super healthy and robust. I let him do it, and my garden came out fantastic. And so that's how I relate the soil to the gut microbiome. It's the terrain inside the gut. It consists of all these good bacteria and microorganisms that live there harmoniously. And it does dictate the health of the gut, the health of the body. And so you have to think of it like the soil in the garden. If you have a sick terrain or a gut microbiome that's off, the balance isn't good, the harmony isn't good, and we're going to talk about that in a second, the health of the body isn't going to be good. The gut wall isn't going to be working properly. So this also is another cause of leaky gut and also health issues. I know I have a patient whose daughter works for Columbia University, and they do research just on this. They literally are connecting gut microbiomes to specific diseases and illnesses. So it's really fascinating science. So the gut microbiome, what's the imbalance mean? There's two aspects of this. The one aspect is that you have this good they call it commensal bacteria, meaning they're good. They're like the probiotic, the things you hear about. And they're the good bacteria in the gut. This is the things we're talking about. When they're robust and they're healthy and they're imbalanced, we have health. So the imbalance means that some of these are outgrowing the others. So it's an overgrowth. So you might have one family or species overgrowing the others. So this is really important because when you have an overgrowth, you have an imbalance. That means some of the other families are going to be sacrificing. So some of those families, so you could have families that are too low in population, and then you can have other ones that are growing too high. You can think of this as weeds in the garden if you want. When weeds overgrow, they start choking the flowers, right? So we don't want an overgrowth of a bacteria, even if it's a good bacteria. And SIBO is one of those things. I also tell people, I made this up, but there's what I call LIBO. The small intestinal bowel overgrowth comes from the large intestinal bowel overgrowth, and that's what we're talking about when you have an overgrowth of these commensal bacteria. Now, before I get into the second half, I want you to understand that Streptococcus is a family that's in there. Staphylococcus is in a family that's in there. E. coli is a family that's in there. So you have these things that when you hear these words, people freak out. So you can have an overgrowth of staph or strep coming from your own microbiome. It's really important because we are raised to understand that everything is an infection. Everything we just caught from the outside world. And although that can happen, the part we're not taught is some of these are opportunistic. They're inside us. So if the strep family or species inside our gut just is overgrowing, it becomes opportunistic. You're the host, right? And it can become invasive. It can become what we would say pathogenic, right? But really it's from within you. C. diff can do that. So there's some of these gray areas that we're just not taught. So the imbalance in the gut microbiome is super important. What I do is I test that, or I don't actually do the testing. You guys send the stool in to the lab that I use, and they give me back the results. And what we do is we look for what we call your gut print. And that is the imbalance in the commensal, the good bacteria in the microbiome. So they'll tell me, hey, this family's too high in the patient, these families are too low. And here's the beautiful part. They'll tell me these 4 families or these 5 families need to be in their probiotic. So I can match the probiotic perfectly up to the gut imbalance or the gut print that fits you. And that's life-changing. That fixes and helps heal the leaky gut. It helps heal the digestive tract as well as the body. With ADHD or ADD, that's super important because of what I see a lot with kids on the spectrum and kids with ADD and ADHD. They have a really thick gut microbiome. And rightfully so, the mom will go out and try to buy probiotics and, out of love and intent, trying to fix this because they've learned about it or they've read about it. But if it's not the right one, you're really not going to get the results that you need. So you can get stuck there. So this testing is really great for that. And I've done that for myself. I bought a really good probiotic at a health food store. I did the gut microbiome testing. They told me that I need these 4 things in my probiotic. So when I looked at my really good probiotic from the health food store, I turned it over and I was like, oh, they're not in there. So just switch the brand and that fixed that. So that's that story. The other story of the gut microbiome are what we call pathogenic things. So these would be, some people call them coexisting infections. To me, they're more opportunistic because they're not always infections again. But these are things that could be in there. And I like to call them pests. It's just like when you have your garden, right? And there's some worms and there's pests and there's things that can kill the flowers. There's also, like we said, weeds in the garden. So there's these things that, again, can become problematic. And that could be parasites. It could be a bacteria that's in there. It could be a virus is in there. It could be yeast, like a fungus. And it also could be what we call biofilms. And biofilms are really quite interesting because it's a film that a bacteria can kind of leave inside the gut in the tissues. And you can think of, if you don't brush your teeth, you'll feel a film on your teeth. It's like that. That could be in there too, that makes you sick. Now, this is a really crucial part of ADD and ADHD too, because when these pests are in there, that gut-brain connection that we've talked about, and we're going to get really deep into, it suffers. It suffers greatly. And when the gut wall doesn't work properly because of this situation, you're not absorbing the vitamins and the nutrients and the minerals and the amino acids and the antioxidants and all the things that you need for the neurotransmitters in the brain to work or to be made. So this is a whole thing we're going to get into, and you're going to get, I'm really excited to bring this to you, but just know that pathogenic things such as parasites can interrupt the gut-brain connection. And it can relate to behavior issues, inability to focus, any kind of stimming, things like that. You want to think of these things. So the job is to rule these out. And if a patient does have one of them, I have a protocol for that. So we remove that. And then we restore that balance and that robust environment, that terrain of the gut, the microbiome. So it's just, the microbiome has really 2 folds. I think of yeast as like the weeds in the garden as well. It's an overgrowth. It's in there. It lives harmoniously in there. And so you don't want it to start overgrowing and taking over. That's another thing. The last 2 points I want to make is that I seem to like to share, or the way I view things is what I say, clinical. Some people might say it's anecdotal, but for me, it's clinical, meaning that I have a practice. I've been here for 30 years, been doing this work, ADD, autism spectrum, leaky gut, all of that for at least 10, and hardcore. But I would put myself 20 years back because I was doing it in my home and then taking it to the practice. So just say I've been doing it for a long time. And so what I do is I look at my practice and I start seeing trends. And the way I figure things out is I'm like, all right, well, if these, patients keep coming into me with these same symptoms, let's say ADD is one of them, right? And ADHD, inability to focus, stimming, just could be behavioral issues, things like that. And then I do the testing and I start seeing patterns and I do a protocol. You start seeing these trends that you're like, okay, this is kind of common in somebody that has this, problem. So what I typically see with ADD and ADHD and also kids on the spectrum is these pathogens. These are pretty common, but the frustrating part for me, it's not the same. I wish it was the same, like, oh, they all have parasites and that's just it. We'll just treat parasites. It's just really not the same. When I look at the spectrum of kids that I've seen, it's very different. So some have like a H. pylori bacteria, some have a campy one, some have K. pneumonia, some of them have yeast and candida, some of them do have parasites. Like, it's just not cookie cutter. So, but I want you to understand that it is common for kids on the spectrum to have a gut pathogen or a pest in there. They do all have some kind of imbalance. So that, and leaky gut, I have had that connection. So we do work with that. But it's really quite interesting with the, when you look at the gut bacteria. The other thing I want to explain to you is when the immune system in the gut is healthy, when the gut wall is working well and properly, when the gut microbiome is strong and healthy and robust, a lot of times these things live symbiotically with you, or the body just deals with it very well and you don't even know. It's not a problem. So for example, you have yeast living in you, it lives harmoniously with you. It's not pathogenic, it's not infectious, it's not whatever big term they use, it's not opportunistic, it's not a problem because it's living harmoniously with you in a healthy environment. You are exposed to parasites a lot. So if your body's able to handle them and live harmoniously with them or eliminate them or keep them at a certain level, you're fine. Same with heavy metals. We're exposed to heavy metals all the time. Some people do really well eliminating them and some don't, where it becomes toxic and the amounts becomes too high. So that's what I want to hit home today about is, yeah, the gut microbiome is part of the leaky gut story, but my goal is always to get the gut working properly. I really think that's the first stage in healing. I hate that word because the body heals itself. I'm not doing the healing for you. So the first stage for me is always repair and restore the gut. Get the gut working well, get the gut able to absorb the micronutrients, which is your vitamins, your minerals, your antioxidants, your amino acids, and make sure that the gut is detoxifying and getting rid of the garbage and the bad things and the toxins and dealing with some of these things like parasites and gut pathogens and all this noise. So that's always my goal. And the first step of any program that you do with functional medicine and nutrition really should be to get the gut and even the liver, because I call them cousins, get them working. And you should do that before detoxing things, before removing things. You should always get the gut healthy. So that's today's talk. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Bye.